I mean, some people just draw attention to themselves as soon as they walk in. It's confession time. Nigel walked straight in and spilt water over our electrical console. So who knows, if we fizz and pop off the air, then that might be curtains.
We could be nicely simmered. Sorry about that. I thought Matt was going to go up in a puff of blue smoke for a minute, but I've never seen him move so quickly.
Give him time.
Is your hair normally that upright? It is now.
So here comes tonight's confession. It comes from Baz. Thank you, Baz. Father Simon and the virtuous sowers of love and forgiveness. Now, the reason why I've kept this for a Thursday is that it does need a Yorkshire accent. Now, that is not in my repertoire, but what I thought I'd do is I'm a little bit nervous. I am actually going to go for it, but only because we've got a Yorkshireman in the room, and you can correct me and then do it properly if I make it patronising and stupid.
Right, lad.
Exactly like that. See?
This is going to be good.
So Matt's already looking at me disapprovingly.
No, I'm not. I can't wait.
I think it's fine. I wouldn't have done it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I feel as though I have permission to do it because Nigel's here. My confession takes us back to the early 1990s and a time when it appeared there was suddenly an enormous need for people to print their own business cards. It's Baz, Bobby. Baz, B-A-Z.
I was trying to decipher the writing from those two.
It's not difficult. It's 3 letters, Baz.
Training to be a doctor.
Okay. And everyone's desired to print their own business cards. We shall return to the business card thing in a moment. Let me tell you for the moment about my friends Aaron and Will. Aaron was the cool kid, the one who everybody wanted to be, despite the fact that he was actually quite mean and loved himself more than I would have previously considered humanly possible. Will, on the other hand, liked to hang around with us, but despite his best efforts was not and was never going to be cool. He was, however, a useful source of sweets and lunch money, and his mother knocked up a mean pavlova. As for me, well, I suppose I was somewhere in the middle, and for the purposes of this confession, I should be grateful if you'll call me by my name, Baz. I almost said William there for a moment, but that would have been wrong. Partly because of the aforementioned pavlova, but also because of her general all-round loveliness, we enjoyed spending time with Will's mum, and therefore often spent time at his house after school. It baffled us, therefore, that such a lovely, almost angelic woman should be married to Trevor, Will's father, a short-tempered, mean-spirited little man with his funny eyes and premature hair loss only adding to our sense of bemusement.
His funny eyes.
Funny eyes.
Sounds like me.
It does.
Trevor would happily send us on our way if he came home from work to find us sitting at the kitchen table, usually with a flea in our ear and some vague threat to call our parents about some deed or other that we might or might not have actually done. One night Trevor sent us packing despite a huge downpour, leaving us to walk home in the pouring rain. Despite the fact that neither of us had yet passed our driving test, we didn't have a coat or umbrella to share between us, and he didn't lend us one. As we walked home on that black, cold and thoroughly unpleasant night, we plotted a sort of revenge against Trevor, and thinking back to the business card machine that had recently been installed at the local shopping centre, we quickly hatched a cunning plan. Firstly, I needed to pass my driving test the following week, and secondly, we needed to amass £7.50 in cash to enable us to purchase a bundle of 50 business cards. Fortunately, I did pass my driving test with just a small number of minor faults, and having raided both our piggy banks, we made our way to the local shopping centre to print up some cards. I have to say, Father Simon, I'm rather proud of the design that we came up with that day. The cards we produced were both professional and believable, bearing the name at the top in large bold font, Trevor's Taxi Service. Beneath that we included Will's phone number, along with some other choice phrases such as specialists in airport transfers, call us anytime, day or night.
Oh no.
Having printed the cards, we then purchased a packet of blue tack and began to drive around our rather large town, stopping at every phone box that we found to carefully stick a business card in between all the other cards that were there.
Yeah.
Took us several hours, but we were finally able to find a home for every single business card. Our only slight sadness came from the fact that we were unlikely to be at Will's house when the phone started ringing. Well, ring it did, Father Simon, and boy oh boy did it ring. In fact, the phone rang so often they were actually lucky enough to hear at least one side of the phone conversation on multiple occasions. Each time the result was similar, with a rather confused traveller in need of a taxi service who found themselves talking to an irate Yorkshireman who fired questions at them whilst a large vein pulsed in his forehead, barking out things like,
Here we go.
Go on.
Take a run up.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, barking out things like, where did that get this number? And, do I sound like a bloomin' taxi driver to you, lad? How did I do?
Yeah, but I think I know that person.
Okay.
Charlie, never mind.
Was that all right? So is that
good.
passable?
Yeah.
Yeah, see? King of the accents.
I think Joe Root might have had a bit of that going on earlier today.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We did feel a little bad when shortly after this incident, Will's mum pointed out to us that they'd received 7 calls the night before, the last one being at 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, Trevor did ultimately figure out that these cards were being found in phone boxes, and he then spent an entire weekend driving around the town trying to find as many as possible. Unfortunately, in many cases, the cards have been transferred to people's wallets for use another day. It also became clear later on that he couldn't have found every phone box when 2 policemen arrived at his door asking him about suspected illegal advertising. Fortunately, the policemen were able to establish that Trevor wasn't really moonlighting as a taxi driver, and having changed their number shortly afterwards, the calls for taxis did obviously dry up. Trevor long suspected our involvement, but we always maintained our innocence, claiming to have neither the funds nor the wherewithal to carry out such a stunt. Fortunately for us, Trevor also had several other suspects at the local working men's club, and so we were never under his gaze for too long at any one point. But he did point at various other people on the way. Father Simon, obviously we don't seek forgiveness from Trevor, who was a deeply unpleasant man, what with those eyes and everything, and frankly deserved everything he got. Nor indeed do we seek forgiveness from Will, who shortly afterwards decided he didn't want to hang around with us any longer, and instead focused on his studies.
Oh, apparently that's a bad thing. Oh, right, okay.
The fact that Will attended Oxford University around the time that Aaron and I started employment with a well-known burger retailer suggests to me that his life wasn't unduly impacted by the events described above. We would, however, like to seek forgiveness from Betty, Will's long-suffering mother. After we stopped spending time with him, I found that I missed her kind listening ear and warm smile just as much as the pavlova, and I'm sure she must have found living with Trevor almost unbearable during that time, what with his eyes and everything.
What's going on?
There's a sign from Baz. From Baz,
Unbelievable.
the now taxi driver. Yes, the irony is not lost on me. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what he's ended up doing. Well, I think with a winning Yorkshire accent, how can you do anything else but be mightily impressed, Bobby Pryor?
Well, you got these teenage boys, yes? And pavlova and hanging around somebody else's house, eating all their food. I feel sorry for Trevor because I understand. I do understand sending you off into the night. You should have been hanging around his house, leading his boy astray and distracting his wife because obviously she had things to do. And making pavlova for you
there was
was
a
not
pavlova.
one
He
of them.
fancied the pavlova, certainly.
I
You
know.
certainly
So I'm with Trevor here. I think he was onto your game, and sending you home in the dark to call you off was probably a good idea. So actually, Baz, you don't get my support here. I admire your effort. It's good effort. Not forgiven.
The novice, then.
Yeah, well, Trev, he does sound properly horrid. I mean, really, and a grumpy Yorkshireman, that'll never happen, surely. And also the fact that one of my favourite people in the world is Auntie Betty, and she's from Yorkshire. And she's lovely.
What? Hang on.
Well, no,
Just
she's
'cause
from
you've got
Yorkshire.
the same name.
You did the Yorkshire accent, and
I
well done
tried.
for you. You had absolutely. And we don't like Trev at all. But Auntie Betty, yeah, you're forgiven. Baz, absolutely forgiven.
Well argued.
Can
Matched
I
it.
be the only one who finds themselves very much in Trevor's corner here? What are these kids doing hanging around in my house, eating my pavlova, talking to my wife all the time, and leading my son astray? I would have sent them out into the night and into the rain with no hesitation. And also, I wouldn't have been quite so forgiving as far as people ringing me up with airport transfers. So, but that said, a valiant effort with the accent. I mean, you know, a lesser man would have balked there, and you didn't. So I'm going to forgive.